Just as I was hitting publish on Friday's show, a Tesla news story hit the wires that had lots of you pinging me to ask what on earth was going on, and some of you asking why the news story wasn't included in Friday's show. And since then, I've heard from even more of you eager to hear my take on it, so I figured we'd start this week with a bit of an update on what we know thus far. You see, late on Friday last week, the Mercury News reported that Tesla had fired as many as 700 employees just a week after it released Q3 production and delivery estimates that, while good for Model X and Model S, showed that Tesla was way behind hitting its expected targets for Model 3. This naturally led some to question if Tesla was trying to slim down its workforce in order to save some cash, while others did assume it was just a pruning of the workforce in order to eliminate deadwood workers who were either ineffective at their job or downright incompetent. Following on from the Mercury News' reports, Reuters published its own report, citing its own sources, namely employees who were among those fired, who alleged that some 400 workers had been dismissed by the company, ranging from associates through to team leads and supervisors. Beyond Reuters, however, other reports from other news organizations cite sales and service staff were included in the layoffs too, suggesting that Tesla's round of firings affected every corner of the company. They also branded around layoff figures as high as 1,000 staff. While Tesla did issue a statement to Reuters stating that it did indeed fire many employees this past week as the consequence of an annual company-wide performance review, it didn't confirm actual figures. In a similar statement to the Mercury News, a Tesla spokesperson told the newspaper that the majority of those fired were mostly outside of manufacturing, with the lion's share in administrative and sales positions. Yet the various employees, current and recently fired, that Mercury News spoke to under the promise of anonymity to protect them from reprisals, said that the firings came with little or no warning and encompassed every part of the company, from engineers and management through to factory floor workers. More troublingly, however, some sources are claiming that many of the staff fired from Fremont had openly been involved in unionization efforts, suggesting that they may have been targeted for trying to start a union. Again, however, given the wide and varied reporting here and lack of official concrete figures from Tesla on the subject, it's really hard to say what on earth is going on. There is one thing every former employee I've spoken to can agree on, however. Working at Tesla is bloody hard work. From factory workers through to those in sales or support roles, all talk of a very demanding work ethic that pushes employees to their absolute limits and very often well beyond it. Of course, I should point out here it's not so uncommon in Silicon Valley or the startup world. Apple and many other high-tech companies put a similar amount of strain on their workforce as Tesla reportedly does for its. And in a similar vein, those companies also have reasonably high burnout figures. The difference here, of course, is that most Silicon Valley tech jobs aren't manual labor in the way that a production line is. And as various reports over the past year have cited, many Tesla employees at the Fremont production facility have been working 12-hour shifts 6 days a week as part of Tesla's production hell in order to ensure that Tesla gets as many cars out of the door as possible. Injuries ranging from herniated discs through to carpal tunnel and tendinitis have been reported and, say those trying to unionize the workforce, are part of the reason to push for the collective bargaining rights that come with union membership. And that brings me back to all the questions that you've been sending my way this weekend, namely, what on earth is going on? Right now, all I can say is that people have been fired. That's been confirmed. But the rest, well, there's substantial disagreement over the reasons and the number of people fired. And as with any company who fires a large number of employees, in this case, somewhere between 2 and 3% of Tesla's 33,000 strong workforce seems to be the figure, the company is going to be eager to portray those firings as routine or necessary pruning, while those fired are always going to feel angry and slighted. The difficulty in this situation? Figuring out really what went on. And there are going to be different views from all camps. You see, in addition to confirming that working at Tesla is really hard work, some people I've spoken to inside the company did suggest that there were people working there who weren't pulling their weight and needed to be fired. And given how pushed Tesla is to meet production demands and turn that elusive profit, it really can't have stragglers or hangers-on in its workforce. The metaphorical kitchen at Tesla is very hot indeed, and I suspect that there are some people there that just can't stand the heat. That said, I'm also not excusing Tesla's behaviour because I've heard of plenty of stories of Tesla asking way too much of its workforce. I'm hearing stories of an exhausted, tired workforce that are simply being asked to do too much. And when a workforce is pushed beyond their limit, they become tired and they make mistakes, and those mistakes could come back to bite Tesla in the butt further down the road. And if it really wants to stay at the forefront of the electric vehicle world, I suspect Tesla needs to treat its workforce better, ask less of them, and perhaps rein in its expectations regarding growth and profits, because right now, Tesla's only racing itself, and that makes it its own worst enemy. That's it. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.